The council chamber floated in space like a massive glass dome. Inside, thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in their designated seats. Some had fur, some had scales, and some looked like living rocks. They all gathered here to make decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Captain Taemin stood in the observation deck, watching through the transparent floor. His uniform was crisp and dark blue, marked with the Earth Alliance symbol on his chest. He had been in space for 15 years, but the sight of so many different species still amazed him. Next to him stood Dr. Hei Wan, a scientist with tired eyes and a notebook full of observations. She leaned forward, trying to hear what the delegates were saying below. "They are talking about trade routes again," she said quietly. "Same boring topics as always." Taemin nodded. The big empires always argued about who controlled which space lanes and which planets had the best resources. They never seemed to care about anything else. Then something changed. A small group of gray-skinned beings walked to the center platform. They were short, barely reaching Taemin's shoulder. Their skin glowed faintly with blue patterns that pulsed like slow heartbeats. These were the Velin. One of them, an elderly female named Subin, stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but steady as she spoke. "Honored council members, we come before you with a desperate request. Our sun is dying faster than our scientists predicted. We have only 6 months before our world becomes uninhabitable. We ask for assistance in evacuating our people." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the whispers began. Taemin watched as a massive being with 4 arms and golden armor stood up. This was Ambassador Crix of the Thelonian Empire, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. "The Velin," Crix said, his voice booming through the chamber. "We remember your people. You were teachers once, many centuries ago. But what do you offer the Council now? What resources do you have? What military strength can you provide?" Subin's glowing patterns dimmed slightly. "We have knowledge. We have our culture and our history. We have our lives and our hopes." Crix laughed, a harsh sound that echoed. "Knowledge? The galaxy has moved beyond what you can teach. Culture? That feeds no one. The Council cannot waste resources on every dying world. There are procedures, requirements. You must offer something of value." One by one, other delegates stood up. Each one had a reason why they could not help. The Marathians said their ships were busy with other missions. The Kellar Confederacy claimed they had no spare resources. The Solturi simply said it was not their problem. Taemin felt his jaw tighten. He looked at Hei Wan, who had tears in her eyes. "This is wrong," she whispered. "The Velin taught half these species how to build their first ships. They shared their knowledge freely when others needed help." "The galaxy has a short memory," Taemin replied. Below them, Subin tried again. "Please, we have 3 billion people. Most are children and elders. We do not have the ships to evacuate them all. We need help," a reptilian delegate hissed. 3 billion. That would require thousands of ships. The cost would be enormous. For what purpose? Your people have no strategic value. Taemin watched as Subin's shoulders slumped. The other Velin delegates looked at the floor. They had known this would happen, he realized. They had come here without hope, just because they had nowhere else to go. The council voted. It was quick and efficient. The Velin petition was denied. The matter was closed. The delegates moved on to discuss mining rights in some distant system. Subin and her people walked slowly back to their small ship docked at the station. Taemin watched them go. "We should do something," Hei Wan said. "We are just observers," Taemin reminded her. "Humanity joined the council only 50 years ago. We have no power here, no influence. But we have ships. We have supplies." Taemin looked at his science officer. She was right, of course. Humanity had ships. Not many, and not the biggest or most advanced. But they had them. He thought about Earth's history. He remembered the stories his grandmother told him about the dark times when humanity almost destroyed itself, about how they rebuilt, how they learned to work together, about the first time they met aliens and how scary it was. He remembered something else, too. When humanity first joined the galactic community, they were weak and primitive compared to the old empires. Some species wanted to help them, others wanted to exploit them, but the Velin had been different. They had sent teachers to Earth, sharing knowledge and asking nothing in return. Tai Min made a decision that he knew would probably cost him his career. He walked to the communication station and opened a channel to the Velin ship. Subin's face appeared on the screen, looking older and more tired than before. "Elder Subin," Tai Min said, "this is Captain Taemin of the Earth Alliance ship Morning Star. I heard your petition." "Thank you for your kindness, Captain," Subin replied. "But there is nothing to be done. We will return to our world and face our fate with dignity." "No," Taemin said firmly. "You will not face it alone. Humanity is coming to help you." Subin stared at him. The glowing patterns on her skin brightened suddenly. "Captain, you cannot mean this. Your people have no obligation to us. You have no reason to risk angering the Council." "We have the best reason," Taemin said. "It is the right thing to do." Behind him, Haewon smiled. She pulled out her communication device and started making calls. Taemin knew what would happen next. His superiors on Earth would be furious. The Council would see this as humans overstepping their place. The Thelonians might even see it as an insult. But he also knew something else. Humanity had not survived its own dark ages by abandoning those in need. They had survived by standing together, by helping each other, by refusing to let fear control their choices. "Hold on, Elder Subin," Taemin said. "We are coming. Tell your people to hold on." Subin's eyes filled with tears. The patterns on her skin glowed so brightly they lit up her entire ship. "Captain Taemin, we have waited so long to hear words like these. Thank you. Thank you." The transmission ended. Taemin stood in the observation deck, watching the massive council chamber continue its business as if nothing important had happened. But something important had happened. Humanity had just made a choice that would change everything. Commander Sung Woo, Taemin's second-in-command, approached with a worried expression. "Sir, did you just promise Earth Alliance support to the Velin without authorization?" "Yes," Taemin said calmly. "That could be considered treason." "Then we will face those consequences together," Taemin replied. "But first we have 3 billion lives to save. Get the crew ready. We are going to Selara." Sung Woo hesitated for only a moment. Then he saluted. "Yes, sir. Though for the record, this is the craziest thing you have ever ordered." "For the record," Taemin said with a slight smile, "I agree completely." The Morning Star began preparations to leave the Council station. In 6 months, a son would die, a species would face extinction, and humanity would be there, standing between them and oblivion. The galaxy was about to learn something about humans that the old empires had forgotten was possible. Sometimes the right choice was more important than the safe choice. Sometimes standing up for others mattered more than standing aside. The Velin had no allies, but they were about to discover that they were no longer alone. The message reached Earth 3 days later. President Nari sat in her office overlooking the rebuilt cities of Seoul, reading Captain Taemin's report for the 3rd time. Around her conference table sat the Earth Alliance military command and senior diplomats. Admiral Jin Ho slammed his hand on the table. "This is madness. One captain cannot commit our entire fleet to a rescue mission without authorization. We have protocols for a reason." "He is trying to help people who are dying," Ambassador Yuna said quietly. She was young for a diplomat, barely 30 years old, but she had studied under Velin scholars during her training. "The Velin are not strangers to us. They helped humanity when we needed knowledge." That was 50 years ago, another admiral argued. Times have changed. If we defy the Council's decision, we risk everything we have built. Trade agreements, peace treaties, our position in galactic society, all of it could collapse. President Nari stood and walked to the window. She was 65 years old, with gray hair and a face marked by years of difficult decisions. But her mind was sharp, and her memory was long. "I remember something," she said softly. "When I was a child, my grandmother took me to meet a Velin teacher who visited Earth. His name was Torin. He spent 5 years here, teaching our scientists about quantum mechanics and faster-than-light travel. He asked for nothing in return." She turned to face the room. "My grandmother asked him why. Why help humans when we had nothing to offer? Do you know what he said?" No one answered. "He said that knowledge grows when it is shared. He said that civilizations thrive when they help each other. He said that one day humans would understand this and pass it forward." Nari paused. "Captain Taman understands. The question is, do we?" The room fell silent. Admiral Jin Ho looked at his hands. "If we do this, we cannot send military escorts. The Council will see that as an act of aggression. Any help we give must appear to be from private citizens. Volunteers." "Then we ask for volunteers," Nari said firmly. "We explain the situation and let our people decide." Ambassador Yuna nodded. "I will draft the announcement." 2 days later, the call went out across all human colonies and stations. The response shocked everyone. Thousands of ships volunteered, cargo haulers, colony transports, even private yachts. Veterans who had retired from the military came back, offering to crew defense ships. Taman received the news while the Morning Star traveled toward Velin space. He stood on the bridge, watching the messages scroll across his screen. Heywan stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Look at this," she said, pointing to one message. "A family on Mars is sending their cargo ship. They say they remember learning about the Velin in school and want to help." "Here is another," Sung Woo added, his skeptical expression softening. "A group of colony builders are bringing construction materials. They say every species deserves a chance to survive." The fleet assembled over the next week. It was not impressive by galactic standards. 3 old colony transport ships that usually carried supplies to frontier worlds. 5 cargo haulers that smelled like grain and metal. 12 small defense corvettes, barely bigger than fighters, owned by private security companies and veteran groups. But it was enough to carry supplies for millions of people. It was enough to show that someone cared. Taman organized the fleet into groups. Heywan took charge of coordinating with Velin scientists, learning everything about their world and their needs. The Velin sent back data about their dying sun, their cities, their people. Elder Subin spoke with Heywan every day. The old Velin leader seemed to grow younger with each conversation, her glowing patterns brightening. "We had forgotten what hope feels like," Subin told Heywan one evening. "For so long we have been invisible to the galaxy. We thought we would die alone, unmourned, and unremembered." "You are not invisible anymore," Heywan replied. "The whole galaxy will see what humanity does." "That is what worries me," Subin said gently. "Captain Taemin and your people are risking so much. What if the Council punishes you? What if the great empires turn against Earth?" Heywan smiled. "Then we will face it together." Humans have a saying. We judge ourselves not by how we treat the powerful, but by how we treat the powerless. The Velin need help. That is all that matters. But not everyone on Earth was happy. News networks debated the mission constantly. Some praised the humanitarian effort. Others called it reckless and dangerous. "We are a young species in a dangerous galaxy," one commentator argued on a popular show. "We cannot afford to make enemies of the Thelonian Empire. The Velin are doomed anyway. Why sacrifice our future for theirs?" Ambassador Yu Na appeared on the same show the next day. "Because the future is built by the choices we make today," she said calmly. "If we choose to look away when people suffer, if we choose safety over compassion, then what kind of future are we building? What kind of species do we become?" The debate raged, but the fleet kept moving. Then the warnings began. A message from the Thelonian Empire arrived at Earth's diplomatic headquarters. The words were polite, but the threat was clear. Any species that interfered with Council decisions would face consequences. The Thelonian ambassador reminded Earth that the Velen homeworld was in Thelonian-claimed space. "They never claimed it before," Admiral Jin Ho noted during an emergency meeting. "They are inventing reasons to stop us." "Will they attack our ships?" President Nari asked. "Unknown. The Thelonians respect strength, but our fleet is tiny compared to theirs. If they decide to stop us by force, we cannot win." Nari considered this. She thought about the easy choice, the safe choice. She could order the fleet to turn back. She could apologize to the Council and promise that humanity would stay in its place. But she also thought about Torin, the Velen teacher who had helped her people. She thought about what it meant to be human, to stand for something beyond mere survival. "Send a message to Captain Taemin," she said. "Tell him Earth Alliance supports his mission. We will not abandon him or the Velen." Jin Ho looked surprised. "Madam President, that is essentially declaring we are protecting the Velen. It could mean war." "Then we pray the Thelonians are not as foolish as they are powerful," Nari replied. "Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when they are bigger than you." The message reached Taemin as his fleet approached Velen space. He read it 3 times, hardly believing what he saw. "Earth is backing us," he told Sung Woo. "Officially." His second-in-command whistled. "President Nari has courage. Let us hope it is enough." "It has to be enough," Taemin said. "Look." On the view screen, a planet appeared. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. But the star it orbited was wrong. It flickered and pulsed, throwing off massive solar storms. The Velen homeworld was dying. "All ships," Taemin broadcast to the fleet. "We have arrived at Solara. Prepare for rescue operations. Every minute counts." The human ships moved into orbit. Below them, 3 billion Velen watched the sky and saw hope arriving. Haywan established contact with the surface. Velen faces appeared on screens throughout the fleet, looking up at the humans with wonder and gratitude. "We see you," Subin said, her voice thick with emotion. "We see you, and we will never forget." "Then let us get to work," Taemin replied. "We have a species to save." The fleet split into teams. Engineers began deploying solar shields to protect cities from radiation storms. Medical teams prepared to treat sick and injured Velen. Cargo ships started landing, unloading food synthesizers and building materials. It was desperate work. It was exhausting work. But it was also something else. It was proof that the galaxy still had room for compassion. It was proof that doing the right thing still mattered. It was proof that one species could stand up and say no to indifference and cruelty. The rescue of the Velen had begun. And across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. If humans could do this, what else was possible? The 3rd day on Solara brought the worst solar storm yet. Taemin watched from the Morning Star's bridge as waves of radiation slammed into the shields his engineers had erected over the largest city. The shields held, but barely. "We need more power," Wu Jin said over the communication channel. He was the chief engineer, currently on the planet's surface with 50 other humans working around the clock. "The star is getting more unstable. These storms will only get worse." "Can you reinforce the shields?" Taemin asked. "Not with what we have. We are using every generator we brought." Wu Jin paused, and Taemin could hear the exhaustion in his voice. Captain, we can protect maybe half the cities. The rest will have to evacuate to the protected zones. Taemin closed his eyes briefly. Half the cities meant millions of Velen would have to leave their homes earlier than planned. But there was no choice. Do it, he ordered. Coordinate with Elder Subin. Get everyone to safety. Below on the planet, Haywan worked in a makeshift command center alongside Veline scientists. They studied maps and population data, trying to figure out the best evacuation routes. A young Veline named Yunji approached her. Dr. Haywan, we have a problem. The southern continent has 30 million people, but only 2 cities with shield coverage. Moving them all will take weeks. Then we start now, Haywan said. Get me transport schedules. We will use every ship we have, make as many trips as necessary. Yunji's glowing patterns pulsed with worry. But that means the transport ships cannot start evacuating people off-world yet. We are losing time. Haywan looked at the young Velin. She saw the fear there, the knowledge that their world was dying, but she also saw determination. We will make it work, Haywan promised. Your people did not give up on us when we needed help. We will not give up on you. The human fleet pushed itself to the limit. Cargo ships made constant trips between cities, moving refugees. Engineers worked 40-hour shifts without sleep. Medical teams treated thousands of Velen suffering from radiation sickness. It was chaos. It was exhausting. But slowly, it was working. Then, on the 4th day, the Thelonian fleet arrived. Taemin was reviewing evacuation reports when the alarm sounded. Sung Woo rushed onto the bridge. Sir, sensors are detecting 30 ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. They are Thelonian warships. Taemin felt his stomach tighten. He had known this might happen. But hoping and knowing were different things. Battle stations, he ordered. Get all civilian ships to the far side of the planet. Put our corvettes between them and the Thelonians. The 12 small defense ships moved into position. They looked like toys compared to the massive Thelonian warships. Each Thelonian vessel was 5 times larger than the Morning Star, armed with weapons that could destroy a city. A communication request came through. Taemin accepted it. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Commander Vexthar, a Thelonian with cold eyes and golden battle armor. His 4 arms moved constantly, each one seeming to have its own purpose. Human Captain, Vexthar said. His voice was deep and harsh. You are in Thelonian space without authorization. You are interfering with a council decision. You have 1 hour to withdraw your ships. Taemin stood straight, keeping his voice calm. Commander Vexthar, we are conducting a humanitarian rescue mission. We have claimed the Solara system under Earth Alliance protection. The Velen people are now under our care. Vexthar's eyes widened slightly. You claim this system? You with your 12 tiny ships? You claim territory from the Thelonian Empire? Yes, Taemin said simply. For a moment, Vexthar seemed genuinely confused. Then he laughed. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. The Thelonian Empire could destroy your entire fleet in minutes. Your people have been in space for barely a century. You have no power here. Power is not just about weapons, Taemin replied. It is also about will. And we have the will to stand here and protect the Velen. Then you will die here, Vexthar said. I am authorized to use force if you do not withdraw. Taemin looked at Sung Woo, who stood nearby. His second-in-command's face was pale, but determined. Around the bridge, the crew worked at their stations, nobody showing fear. We will not withdraw, Taemin said. Vexthar's expression hardened. So be it. In 1 hour, if you are still here, we will open fire. Your deaths will be your own choice. The transmission ended. Sung Woo walked to Taemin's side. Sir, we need to contact Earth. Get instructions. There is no time. By the time we get a response, the hour will be up. Taemin looked at the Thelonian ships on the display. This is our choice to make. We cannot win this fight, Sung Woo said quietly. No, we cannot, Taemin agreed. But we can make them pay for starting it. We can make sure the whole galaxy knows what happened here. He opened a channel to all human ships. This is Captain Tae-min. The Thelonian fleet has given us an ultimatum. Leave or fight. I will not order anyone to die. Any ship that wants to leave should do so now. There will be no shame in it. He waited. The channel stayed open. Nobody spoke. Then Wu Jin's voice came through from the surface. Captain, my engineering team votes to stay. Someone has to protect these people. Medical team staying, another voice added. Cargo ship Phoenix staying, said a third voice, a civilian captain. My kids will understand why. One by one, every ship reported in. Every single one chose to stay. Tae-min felt his throat tighten. Thank you, he said simply. All civilian ships move to the far side of Solara. Military vessels maintain position. If they attack, make every shot count. On the planet below, Subin watched the sky. She could see the ships up there, the human fleet and the Thelonian armada facing each other. Around her, millions of Velin had stopped their evacuation work to watch. They are going to die for us, Eunji said, standing beside the elder. Humans are going to die to protect us. Subin's glowing patterns pulsed bright and fast. Then we must make sure their sacrifice means something. If the humans die, we record what happens. We tell the galaxy. We make sure everyone knows they stood firm. News of the standoff spread fast. Every species with communication technology heard about it. The young captain who defied an empire. The tiny fleet standing against overwhelming force. The humans who refused to abandon the forgotten Velin. On Earth, President Nari watched the reports with Admiral Jin Ho. We should send reinforcements, Jin Ho said. They would never arrive in time, Nari replied. Even if we sent our entire fleet, it would take weeks to reach Solara. Then what do we do? Nari thought for a moment, then she stood. We make sure the galaxy is watching. If the Thelonians want to kill our people, they will do it in front of everyone. She contacted the galactic news networks. She gave interviews. She broadcast messages. By the time the hour was almost up, every major species in the galaxy knew what was happening at Solara. Tae-min watched the timer count down. 30 minutes, 20, 10. Sir, the communications officer called out. We are receiving a message from the Kalar Confederacy. They say they are sending relief ships to Kalara. Tae-min looked up, surprised. What? Another message from the Marathians. They are also sending ships. The Solturi are announcing support for the human rescue mission, another officer added. Messages poured in. Species that had voted against helping the Velin were now changing their positions. Young civilizations were forming a coalition, announcing they would stand with humanity. On the Thelonian flagship, Vexthar received reports from his superiors. The galactic response was unexpected. This was supposed to be simple, a matter of showing one weak species its place. But now it was becoming a political disaster. If he attacked the humans now, he would be attacking in front of a dozen allied species. The Thelonian Empire would be seen as bullies, killing people who were only trying to save lives. His orders changed. With 5 minutes left on the ultimatum, Vexthar opened a channel to Tae-min one last time. Human Captain, the Thelonian Empire has decided to allow your humanitarian mission to continue. We will withdraw our forces. Tae-min tried to keep the relief off his face. A wise decision, Commander. Vexthar leaned forward. Do not think this is over, human. You have made powerful enemies today. The galaxy will not always be watching. Then I guess we will have to keep giving them reasons to watch, Tae-min replied. The Thelonian ships turned and jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing in flashes of light. The human fleet had won without firing a single shot. On the bridge of the Morning Star, The crew erupted in cheers. Sung-woo slapped Tae-min on the back. "We did it! They backed down!" Tae-min allowed himself a small smile. "We had help. Send thanks to everyone who spoke up for us." Below on Solara, the Velen watched the Thelonian fleet leave. Subin fell to her knees, her glowing patterns blazing with joy and relief. "They stood firm," she whispered. "The humans stood firm, and the galaxy listened." The rescue operation continued with new energy. Ships from other species began arriving, bringing supplies and support. The forgotten Velen were forgotten no more, and humanity had learned something important. Sometimes standing up to power worked. Sometimes doing the right thing inspired others. Sometimes one voice saying no could change everything. The arrival of coalition ships changed everything. What had been a desperate rescue mission with limited resources became a massive operation. Within 3 days of the Thelonian withdrawal, 40 ships from 12 different species orbited Solara. Tae-min coordinated the expanded effort from the Morning Star. He was exhausted, surviving on coffee and short naps, but he felt energized by what was happening. Species that had never worked together before were now sharing resources and coordinating rescue efforts. "Captain, the Kalar are offering their heavy transport ships," Hae-won reported. She looked as tired as Tae-min felt, but her eyes were bright. "They can carry 50,000 Velen per trip. That will speed up the evacuation significantly." "Accept their offer and integrate them into the schedule," Tae-min said. He studied the evacuation board. "How many Velen are still on the surface?" 2,800,000,000, Hae-won replied. "We have evacuated 200 million to temporary stations and colony sites. At our current rate, we can get everyone off the planet in time." Sung-woo approached with a datapad. "Sir, I have been reviewing the coalition efforts. Do you realize what is happening here? We have species working together that have not cooperated in centuries. The Marathians and Solturi fought a war 50 years ago. But here they are, coordinating refugee transport schedules." Tae-min nodded. "The Velen crisis is bringing people together. Maybe that is what the galaxy needed, a reminder that we all share the same space." On the planet's surface, Wu Jin's engineering team worked alongside engineers from 3 other species. They had built a network of shield generators that now protected all major cities from the dying star's radiation. A Kilar engineer named Bix approached Wu Jin. The Kilar looked like a walking crystal, with light refracting through his transparent body. "Human Wu Jin, your design for the mobile shield generators is excellent. My people would like permission to study it." Wu Jin wiped sweat from his face. "Study away. Share it with anyone who needs it. That is what the Velen would do." Bix's crystalline form flickered with what might have been approval. "You humans have an interesting philosophy. Most species guard their technology jealously." "Most species do not remember being the ones who needed help," Wu Jin replied. The evacuation proceeded city by city. Subin insisted on being one of the last to leave, staying to help organize the final groups. Yoonji stayed with her, coordinating with the various species. In the temporary command center, Hae-won worked late into the night with Velen archivists. They were copying every piece of Velen culture they could save: books, art, music, scientific records, historical documents, everything that made the Velen who they were. "We cannot save our world," a Velen archivist named Bo-Ra said sadly, "but we can save our memory of it." "You will build a new world," Hae-won assured her, "and you will teach new generations about the old one. Culture lives in people, not just in places." Bo-Ra's glowing patterns pulsed thoughtfully. "Dr. Hae-won, why do humans care so much? You risk everything for us. You barely know us." Hae-won considered the question. "Maybe because we know what it feels like to be alone and scared. Earth almost destroyed itself before we learned to work together. When we finally reached the stars, we were terrified. The Velen helped us then. Now we help you. Maybe that is how civilization should work. News from Earth brought both good and bad updates. The coalition of younger species was growing stronger, with more members joining every day. But the old empires were not happy about it. The Thelonian Empire issued formal complaints. Other powerful species grumbled about humans disrupting the established order. President Nari addressed the Galactic Council directly. Ambassador Yuna stood beside her as she spoke. "The Earth Alliance does not apologize for saving lives," Nari said firmly. "We do not apologize for standing with the Velen when no one else would. If this disrupts your order, then perhaps your order needed to be disrupted." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates agreed, others shouted in anger. But something had changed. The younger species were no longer quiet. They were speaking up, demanding change. Ambassador Yuna took the podium next. "The Velen taught many of you," she said, looking at the delegates. "They shared knowledge freely. They helped you build your civilizations. And when they needed help, you forgot them. But the galaxy was watching when humanity remembered. The galaxy saw what happened at Solara. You cannot pretend you did not see it." An elderly delegate from the Solturi stood up. His species had been one of the first to refuse aid to the Velen. Now he looked ashamed. "The human is right," he said quietly. "We were wrong." The Solturi formally apologized to the Velen people and pledge our full support to their relocation. One by one, other delegates stood. Some apologized. Some pledged resources. The tide was turning. Back at Solara, the evacuation entered its final phase. The star was becoming increasingly unstable. Solar storms hit the planet every few hours now. The shield generators struggled to keep up. "We have 3 weeks, maybe less," Wu Jin reported. "After that, even the shields will not be enough." Taemin studied the evacuation numbers. They were close, so close. "Can we speed up the transport schedule?" "We are already at maximum capacity," Haiwan said. "Every ship is making continuous runs." Then a new fleet arrived. This one was larger than all the others combined. 20 massive transport ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, followed by support vessels and military escorts. The communications officer looked confused. "Sir, we are being hailed by the Thelonian Empire." Taemin stiffened. "Put them through." But it was not Commander Vexthar this time. It was a different Thelonian, an older one with white armor instead of gold. "Captain Taemin, I am Admiral Nor of the Thelonian Relief Fleet. We are here to assist with the evacuation." Taemin stared at the screen. "You are here to help?" "Yes. Our government has reconsidered its position. The Thelonian people watched what happened here. They were not pleased with how our empire responded. There were protests, demands for change. So here we are." Admiral Nor paused. "Perhaps you humans have taught us something we forgot." Sungwoo whispered to Taemin. "Is this real? The Thelonians are actually helping?" "Apparently so," Taemin replied. He addressed Admiral Nor. "We welcome your assistance. Coordinate with Dr. Haiwan for transport assignments." The Thelonian ships integrated into the evacuation effort. With their massive carrying capacity, the timeline improved dramatically. What would have taken weeks now took days. Subin stood on a hilltop near the last remaining city, watching the transports come and go. Yunji stood beside her. "We are going to make it," the young Velen said. "We are all going to survive." "Yes," Subin agreed. "And we will never forget why. When the galaxy turned its back, humanity stood firm. When we were alone, they gave us hope." The final evacuation began. City by city, the lights went out as the last Velen left their world. It was heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time. Heartbreaking to leave a world they had lived on for thousands of years. Hopeful because they were alive to leave it. Taemin watched from orbit as the last transport left the surface. Subin was on that ship, along with the final group of Velin. The planet below was empty now, a ghost world waiting for its star to die. 3 billion Velin evacuated successfully, Heywan reported. Her voice was thick with emotion. "Captain, we did it! We saved them all!" The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Even Sung-woo, usually so controlled, was wiping tears from his eyes. Taemin opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Captain Taemin. The evacuation of Solara is complete. Every Velin who wanted to leave has been saved. I want to thank every human who volunteered for this mission. I want to thank every species that joined the coalition. And I want to thank the Velin for reminding us all what really matters." He paused, looking at the dying star on the view screen. The galaxy said the Velin had no value. The galaxy said they were not worth saving. But we proved them wrong. We proved that every life has value. Every species deserves a chance to survive. And when someone needs help, we do not ask what we get in return. We just help. The message broadcast across the fleet and beyond, carried by news networks to every corner of the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, beings watched and listened. On Earth, President Nari watched the broadcast with tears running down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Admiral Jin Ho stood beside her. "You took a huge risk, Madam President. It could have gone very wrong." "But it did not," Nari replied. "And now the galaxy knows what humanity stands for. We stand for each other. We stand firm when others would walk away." At Solara, the fleet began to disperse. The Velin refugees were being transported to their new homes. Some would go to worlds offered by the coalition species. Others would settle in human space, on the 3 uninhabited planets Earth had promised them. Subin sent a final message to Taemin before her transport jumped to faster-than-light travel. "Captain, you saved my people. How can we ever repay this debt?" "By thriving," Taemin replied. "By rebuilding your civilization. By teaching others what you taught us. That is all the payment we need." "Then we will do more than survive," Subin promised. "We will flourish, and one day, when another species faces what we faced, we will stand with them, just as you stood with us." The transport ship jumped away, carrying the last of the Velin to safety. Behind them, Solara's star pulsed one final time, then began its collapse into death. But the Velin lived on, and the galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. 5 years had passed since the evacuation of Solara. Captain Taemin, now promoted to Admiral, stood on the observation deck of the new Earth Alliance headquarters station. He was older now, with gray at his temples, but his eyes still held the same determination. Beside him stood Jin Ho, who had become his closest friend and advisor. The 2 men watched ships come and go from the busy station. "Do you remember when this station was just a proposal?" Jin Ho asked. "Now it is the hub of the coalition of free species." Taemin smiled. 47 member species and growing. Who would have thought that standing up for the Velin would change the entire galaxy? The coalition had formed in the years after Solara. The younger species, inspired by humanity's actions, had banded together. They did not try to overthrow the old empires, but they no longer accepted being ignored. They had power now, through unity and cooperation. The Galactic Council was very different from what it had been. The old empires still had influence, but they could no longer make decisions without considering the coalition's voice. The Thelonian Empire had even joined as an associate member, slowly changing its policies. A chime sounded. Heywan's face appeared on the communication screen. She was on the surface of New Solara, the planet the Velin had chosen as their new home. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said excitedly. "The first city is complete." Taemin and Jin Ho took a shuttle down to the planet. New Solara was beautiful. with blue skies and gentle weather. The Velen had built their first major settlement in a valley surrounded by mountains. But it was not just a Velen city. Humans lived there too, along with Kalar, Marathians, Solturi, and members of a dozen other species. They had built it together, a symbol of the new galaxy. Subin met them at the landing platform. She was older now, moving more slowly, but her glowing patterns were as bright as ever. Yunji walked beside her, now a senior Velen diplomat. "Admiral Taemin," Subin said warmly, "welcome to New Solara. Welcome home." "Home?" Taemin asked. "Yes," Subin replied. "You saved our people. This will always be your home too." They walked through the city together. Children of different species played in the parks. Markets sold goods from 100 worlds. Universities taught students of all backgrounds. It was everything the old galaxy had said was impossible. In the city center stood a monument. It was simple but powerful. A stone pillar with names carved into it, the names of every human who had participated in the rescue mission. At the top were carved words in both human and Velen languages. When all turned away, humanity stood firm. Let this world remind us, we are never forgotten when we remember each other. Subin touched the monument gently. Every Velen child learns these names. They learn what humanity did for us. They learn that courage matters more than power. "You have built something beautiful here," Taemin said. "We have built it together," Subin corrected. "Velen and human side by side. That is how it should be." They walked to the edge of the city, where construction crews were working on expansion projects. Wu Jin was there, directing a mixed team of engineers from 4 different species. "Admiral," he called out when he saw Taemin, "come see what we are building. A research center for advanced technology. Velen scientists working with human engineers, sharing knowledge and creating new innovations. The kind of cooperation the Velen always believed in," Heywan added. She had moved to New Solara permanently, leading the joint research efforts. Taemin watched the workers collaborate. Different species working together as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Maybe, he thought, it should be. That evening, there was a celebration. The official dedication of New Solara as the Velen's new homeworld. Thousands of Velen and their allies gathered in the central plaza. President Nari had come from Earth for the occasion. She was older now, near the end of her term, but still sharp and engaged. She stood with Subin as they jointly activated the city's central power core. Lights blazed across the city. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Nari spoke to the assembly. "5 years ago, the galaxy said the Velen had no value. Today, we stand in a thriving city that proves them wrong. The Velen are not just survivors, they are teachers, artists, scientists, friends. They are proof that every species deserves a chance." Subin spoke next. "We came to the galaxy asking for help and were refused by those we once aided. But humanity heard us. One captain, one ship, one decision to do what was right. That decision changed everything." She turned to Taemin, who stood near the stage. "Admiral Taemin, would you join us?" Reluctantly, Taemin walked onto the stage. He had never been comfortable with public attention. Subin continued. "The Velen people have a tradition. When someone saves your life, they become family. Today, we formally adopt humanity into the Velen family. From this day forward, our species are bound together. Your victories are our victories. Your struggles are our struggles. We will stand with you as you stood with us." The crowd erupted in cheers. Velen patterns glowed brightly across the plaza. Human crew members wiped tears from their eyes. Taemin looked at Subin, then at the crowd, then back at the old Velen leader. "Elder Subin, we did not do this for payment or recognition. We did it because it was right." "I know," Subin said gently. "That is exactly why you deserve recognition. You showed the galaxy that doing right still matters. You gave us our lives. Now we pledge those lives to standing with you, to building a better galaxy together." After the ceremony, Taemin found a quiet spot away from the celebration. Sungwoo found him there, looking up at the stars. "You know you are famous now, right?" Sungwoo said. "The human who defied the galaxy. Children study your decisions in school." "I am not a hero," Taemin replied. "I just refuse to walk away." "That is exactly what makes you a hero," Sungwoo said. "Anyone can fight when they are strong. You fought when you were weak, when logic said to give up, when the smart choice was to turn around. You chose compassion over safety. That is courage." Taemin thought about the last 5 years. The coalition had grown strong. The Velin had survived and flourished. The galaxy had changed in small but important ways. But there was still work to do. There were still species suffering in silence, still injustices that needed to be addressed. The old empires were changing, but slowly. "Do you think it will last?" Taemin asked. "This new way of doing things?" "I do not know," Sungwoo admitted. "But I know this. Every time a species faces extinction, they will remember the Velin. They will remember that someone stood up, someone refused to accept that might makes right. That memory will inspire others." Months later, Taemin received an urgent message. A small species called the Tauren were facing a similar crisis. Their world was being consumed by industrial pollution, and they lacked the technology to save themselves. The Galactic Council had denied their petition for aid. Taemin read the message and smiled. He contacted his crew. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We have work to do." "Sir," his communications officer replied, "you do not have authorization for another rescue mission." "Then we will get authorization after we arrive," Taemin said. "Contact the Velin, contact the Coalition, tell them the Tauren need help." Within hours, ships began assembling. Human vessels joined with Velin ships, Kalar transports, Marathian frigates. The Coalition answered the call. This time, the response was not just from a few volunteers. It was organized, powerful, and united. The galaxy had learned from Solara. When someone needed help, the Coalition responded. The old empires watched nervously. The Thelonian Empire issued a protest, but it was weak and half-hearted. They knew the galaxy had changed. On New Solara, Subin watched the fleet depart on her communication screen. Yunji stood beside her. "It begins again," the young Velin said. "No," Subin corrected gently. "It continues. This is what we promised, to stand with others as humanity stood with us. This is how civilizations should work. This is how the galaxy should work." She thought back to that desperate day 5 years ago, when she had stood before the Galactic Council and been refused. She remembered the hopelessness, the certainty that her people would die forgotten and alone. And she remembered the moment when Captain Taemin's face appeared on her screen, saying words she never thought she would hear. "We are coming. Hold on." Those words had changed everything. They had saved 3 billion lives. They had inspired a movement. They had shown the galaxy a better way. Now, other species would hear those same words. Other people who thought they were alone would discover they had allies. The forgotten would be remembered. The abandoned would find friends. Because humanity had stood firm once, and in doing so, had taught others to stand firm too. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying hope to another dying world. Behind them, New Solara glowed in the night, a living monument to what was possible when species chose compassion over indifference. The galaxy had been changed by one simple choice: to help when help was needed, to stand when others would walk away, to remember that every life, every species, every person mattered. The old empires might have forgotten this truth, but humanity remembered, the Velin remembered, and now the Coalition would make sure the galaxy never forgot again. Taemin stood on the bridge of his ship, heading toward another rescue. another chance to prove that doing right still mattered. He thought about everything that had happened since that day at the council chamber. One decision, one stand, one refusal to accept that power was the only thing that mattered. It had been enough to change the galaxy. And as the ship flew through space toward the Tauran homeworld, Taemin smiled. The work was not done. It might never be done. But every species saved, every life protected, every time someone stood firm for what was right, the galaxy became a little better. That was enough. That was everything. The forgotten would never be forgotten again. Not while humanity stood firm. Not while the coalition stood together. The galaxy had learned a lesson, and the lesson was simple. Compassion is not weakness. Mercy is not foolishness. Standing up for others is not optional. It is what makes civilizations worth building. It is what makes the galaxy worth saving. It is what makes the future worth fighting for. And as long as species remembered that, there would always be hope. There would always be someone willing to stand firm.